A camera drifts slowly through the blackness of space. No stars at first, only silence, as if the universe is holding its breath. Then, faintly, a glow flickers into view. Galaxies suspended like lanterns, spiraling arms of light turning in the void. Against this cosmic stage, a single question whispers, almost too soft to hear. What if there are worlds that never came to be? Not destroyed, not forgotten, but denied existence itself. Could such worlds still leave traces, faint echoes in the vast theater of reality? The human mind trembles at this paradox. We are accustomed to thinking of existence as binary. Something either is or it is not. Yet the notion of never was unsettles this simplicity. Imagine a planet orbiting a distant star, a paradise lush with emerald forests, oceans alive with creatures beyond imagination. But then imagine that planet never truly formed, that somewhere in the quantum weave, the dice of physics rolled differently, erasing the possibility before it could take shape. Does the memory of such a place still linger in the deep mathematics of the cosmos? Can the unreal, the undone, and the impossible still whisper their presence? The prologue invites us to linger at the edge of this mystery. Every civilization that has looked at the stars has wondered if we are alone. Yet an even stranger question rises. What about the civilizations that never existed at all? Are their voices locked away in silence? Or do they echo faintly in the gaps of reality, half felt, half imagined, like dreams dissolving at dawn? A cinematic sweep carries us through ancient myths, where gods and heroes inhabited realms that never were. These stories were not mere fabrications, but coded attempts to touch the unreal. Myths carved shadows of worlds humanity longed for but never inhabited. Perhaps those visions themselves are fragments, transmissions from realities that flickered close but did not ignite into being. The prologue plants this possibility, seeding both awe and unease. Now, imagine standing on the edge of a cliff at night, the sea roaring below, stars like cold fire above. The wind carries whispers that cannot be traced to any source. You cannot tell if they are echoes of your own mind or voices from beyond. This is the sensation we must hold as we begin our journey. The haunting thought that reality itself may be filled with ghost messages, carved not into stone or sound, but into the very silence of what never came to pass. Science complicates the mystery further. Physics tells us that possibility is not simply a philosophical indulgence, but a measurable structure within the universe. The quantum world, with its infinite branching, allows countless versions of events, most of which collapse into nothingness. Are those unrealized outcomes lost forever, or do they imprint themselves somewhere, somehow, on the fabric of reality? Every time an electron chooses one path and not another, could there be a faint resonance from the path it refused? Philosophy, too, insists we wrestle with this question. Thinkers have debated the realm of possibility for centuries, arguing whether what could have been is a meaningful category or merely illusion. Yet behind their words is the same tremor of awe. If possibility has structure, then absence has voice. The unreal may not be empty. It may be a chamber that echoes with unheard messages. The emotional weight of this opening cannot be understated. There is both terror and beauty in the idea that we might be surrounded by silent transmissions from worlds erased before they began. Terror, because it reminds us of the fragility of existence. Our world, too, could easily have been one of the unmade. Beauty, because it expands the horizon of wonder, suggesting that imagination itself might be a receiver tuned to impossible frequencies. As the camera moves deeper into the star fields, we sense both distance and intimacy. Each glimmer of light becomes a symbol of countless paths untaken. The galaxies themselves seem to ask, is existence the exception, not the rule? Are the unrealized vastnesses more abundant than the realized? If so, then perhaps our own world is only one fragile signal in an ocean of silence. The prologue leaves us suspended here, in the tension between revelation and uncertainty. No answers are given, only questions sharpened. The purpose is not to solve, but to ignite the spark of awe, the chill of mystery, the urgency to search. The journey ahead will traverse science, philosophy, art, and imagination, pulling us through the labyrinth of possibility. But the first step is to accept the haunting premise that the cosmos may be full of messages, not from stars or galaxies, not from civilizations or gods, but from worlds that never existed. And as the final image fades, the whisper returns, subtle, inescapable, and unresolved. If those worlds never were, why do we feel them calling? From the earliest flickers of human consciousness, our ancestors raised their eyes to the sky and felt both awe and terror. The night sky was not just a scatter of stars. It was a map of mysteries, a vast canvas onto which they projected their fears, hopes, and questions. Why are we here? What lies beyond that veil of darkness? Are there realms, unseen but present, that whisper through our imaginations? The hunger for what cannot be touched or measured has shaped our species like a guiding force, pulling us toward myths, philosophies, and sciences that seek to answer questions we barely know how to ask. This hunger is paradoxical. On one hand, it reveals our fragility. Humans have always feared what they cannot explain. The rustle in the forest, the shadow beyond the fire's edge, the silence between stars. Yet at the same time, we are irresistibly drawn toward those very unknowns. The unseen frightens us, but it also compels us to dream. This contrast, fear and fascination, dread and desire, is the emotional fuel behind humanity's obsession with the unseen. Consider the cave paintings of Lascaux, etched in flickering firelight more than 17,000 years ago. The animals drawn on those walls were not just representations of the visible world. They were symbolic bridges into the unseen. The hunters who created them sought to reach beyond ordinary existence, to contact a reality invisible to the eyes, but alive in the spirit. They believed that these painted images could summon power, shape destiny, or connect them with forces beyond the hunt. Already, even in prehistory, the unseen was not an absence, but a presence, a realm of possibility, both threatening and promising. As civilizations grew, so did their cosmologies. The Greeks imagined Olympus, a mountain world invisible to ordinary mortals, where gods feasted and quarreled. The Egyptians envisioned Duat, the unseen underworld guiding the soul after death. The Norse spoke of Yggdrasil, a tree connecting 9 realms, only some of which intersected human life. These stories did not merely entertain. They offered maps of the unseen, placing humanity within a larger, layered cosmos. Whether these worlds existed was less important than the fact that people felt them. They became vivid landscapes of meaning, filling the silence of the unknown with voices. Philosophy sharpened this instinct into inquiry. Plato spoke of the realm of forms, perfect, unseen realities casting shadows into the imperfect material world. For him, the true essence of things was invisible to the senses. What we saw was only an echo, a distorted reflection of something higher. This philosophical hunger for the unseen carried forward into the medieval era, when theologians spoke of divine mysteries lying beyond the veil of human comprehension. Whether in philosophy or religion, the pattern was the same. The unseen was not ignored but pursued, wrestled with, and revered. Yet the unseen was never only about gods and metaphysics. It was also about possibility. Every time a human asked, "What if?" they invoked an unseen world. What if there were lands beyond the horizon? What if there were life beyond Earth? What if things could be different than they are? These questions were not idle. They expanded imagination into territory reality had not yet granted. When sailors of the 15th century stared westward across the Atlantic, they weren't only seeking new lands. They were reaching into the unseen, propelled by visions of worlds that might or might not exist. This hunger also shaped science. Galileo, raising his telescope to the heavens, was driven not only by method but by wonder. The unseen moons of Jupiter became visible, shattering the neat cosmic order of Ptolemy. The microscope revealed invisible kingdoms teeming with life. The particle accelerator revealed quarks and leptons, entities no eye would ever see directly. At each stage, science extended our reach into the unseen. Yet the paradox remains. Every discovery unveils more mystery. The unseen retreats like a horizon, always just beyond the edge of sight. But why do we crave it so desperately? Part of the answer lies in our emotional architecture. The unseen promises escape from the limitations of mortality, from the predictability of daily life, from the prison of what is. To imagine other possibilities is to resist despair. For every fear of the unseen, death, darkness, the unknown, there is also hope. Hope that reality is larger, stranger, richer than what we can grasp. Hope that other worlds, other lives, other futures could be waiting just beyond perception. This duality is reflected in culture. Horror stories thrive on unseen terrors, creatures lurking in the shadows, presences we cannot fully perceive. At the same time, utopian visions flourish on unseen possibilities, worlds of peace, progress, or transcendence not yet realized. Fear and hope intertwine, making the unseen not just an intellectual puzzle, but an emotional crucible. It shapes our art, our myths, our science, and our identities. The hunger also reveals a deeper truth about human consciousness. We are not content with what is given. Unlike other animals, who respond to the visible and the tangible, humans construct mental landscapes of what is not present. We imagine futures, reconstruct pasts, dream up scenarios that may never come true. In doing so, we inhabit unseen worlds daily. The imagination itself is evidence of our need to explore beyond the limits of reality. Yet this hunger carries risk. History shows how the unseen can be manipulated. Prophets, rulers, and ideologues have exploited humanity's yearning by promising invisible rewards or threats. Heavens, hells, secret powers, hidden enemies. The unseen can inspire hope, but can also enslave minds. This contrast makes the hunger both dangerous and indispensable. Without it, we would stagnate in the known. With it, we risk being lost in illusions. As we return to the cinematic frame, the camera moves across a library of human imagination, scrolls, manuscripts, films, digital renderings. Each page, each screen, holds worlds that never were, but that still shape us. From Homer's Odyssey to modern science fiction, the unseen has been the stage upon which we rehearse our deepest longings and fears. These creations are not frivolous. They're the coded language of humanity's relationship with the unknown. The section closes with a lingering question. If our hunger for the unseen has been so constant, so insistent, might it be more than imagination? Might this hunger itself be evidence that the unseen is real, that there are messages, faint but insistent, waiting for us to notice? We end not with certainty, but with tension, a species defined by its thirst for what it cannot see, forever caught between the dread of shadows and the ecstasy of revelation. A human lies sleeping, the world outside quiet, but inside the mind a storm of images unfolds. Cities that never existed rise in intricate detail, strangers speak in familiar tones, and impossible events play out as if they were real. When the dreamer awakens, the memory fades like smoke, yet the feeling lingers. Where did these visions come from? Were they merely random sparks in the brain, or do they hint at something deeper? Alternate realities playing themselves out behind the curtain of sleep? Dreams have always carried an aura of mystery. In ancient Mesopotamia, kings recorded dreams as omens, believing they contained messages from gods or spirits. The Egyptians created entire manuals for dream interpretation, assigning meaning to images that appeared in the night. Across cultures, dreams were not dismissed as illusions, but revered as portals to unseen realms. They were thought to carry warnings, prophecies, or glimpses into worlds otherwise inaccessible. Even today, when neuroscience explains dreams as the product of neural activity, the haunting sense of significance remains. Why does a dream feel so real if it is nothing more than static? Why does it sometimes reveal truths the waking mind cannot articulate? Science offers partial answers. The brain, in its dreaming state, weaves memories, emotions, and fragments of perception into vivid narratives. Dreams are simulations, testing possibilities, rehearsing dangers, processing fears. In this view, the dream is a survival tool, a theater where the mind can explore what might happen without the risk of reality. But even if this is true, another question rises. Are these simulations merely personal illusions, or could they be reflections of possibilities that never became real? Imagine the mind as a radio, tuning not only into its own circuits, but into faint signals bleeding in from realities adjacent to ours. Most of the time, the dial is fixed on the frequency of waking life. But during sleep, as the conscious filters dissolve, perhaps the receiver drifts. Perhaps dreams are not simply self-contained illusions, but windows into worlds denied existence. Messages leaking in from possibilities that never took form. This idea lingers at the boundary between science and speculation, unsettling yet strangely compelling. Consider the déjà vu phenomenon. A person walks into a place they have never been, yet it feels uncannily familiar, as if they are remembering an alternate path of time. Dreams often share this quality. They invent places and people that feel realer than real. A street corner in a dream may never have existed in waking life, but the dreamer knows it, feels its history, senses its reality. Could it be that such places belong to unrealized branches of existence, worlds that the mind brushes against briefly in the vulnerability of sleep? The emotional power of dreams heightens this mystery. A nightmare can leave the dreamer shaken for hours, even days, as if they had truly lived through terror. A beautiful dream can fill the heart with longing, a melancholy ache for something never possessed. These emotions are not faint. They are visceral, binding the dreamer to a reality that technically never was. If dreams are nothing but illusions, why do they feel like lived experience? And if they are lived experiences, then where exactly did they happen? Mythology provides another lens. In some traditions, dreams were thought to be travels of the soul. The Maori spoke of dreams as journeys into realms beyond waking. The Greeks distinguished between two gates of dreams: the gate of horn, from which true visions flowed, and the gate of ivory, which birthed illusions. Even here, the tension between truth and falsehood, between messages and noise, was central. Were dreams gifts of insight, or were they traps of the imagination? That duality still resonates today. Modern psychology reframes the debate. Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, seeing them as coded expressions of hidden desires. Jung went further, describing dreams as bridges to the collective unconscious, a deep well of symbols and archetypes shared across humanity. In this Jungian sense, dreams are not just personal, but universal, shaped by forces beyond the individual. And if they are universal, could they be tapping into something larger than the brain itself? Could archetypes be messages from worlds that never were, but could have been patterns of possibility woven into the human psyche? Yet there is danger in leaning too far into mystery. Science cautions us. The brain is a master of invention, capable of generating entire realities in the theater of sleep. There may be no messages from elsewhere, no alternate worlds behind the veil, only neurons firing in elaborate cascades. But even within this explanation lies a kind of wonder. If the brain can conjure realities so convincing that we mistake them for truth, does that not make it a creator of unrealized worlds in its own right? Every dream, whether mundane or extraordinary, is a message from a world that never existed, crafted in the secret workshop of the mind. The contrast is striking. To the skeptic, dreams are illusions with no external meaning. To the seeker, they are whispers from hidden realms. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Perhaps dreams are both psychological constructions and glimpses into possibility. Perhaps what matters is not whether they are real, but how they shape us. A dream can inspire a work of art, a scientific breakthrough, or a life-changing decision. History is full of such examples, dreams that guided inventors, writers, and leaders, leaving marks on the waking world. In this way, dreams become messages not only from unrealized worlds, but for this world, shaping its course in subtle, invisible ways. This section leaves us with a haunting question. When we close our eyes and step into the shifting theater of dreams, are we only watching ourselves, or are we brushing against the edges of realities never born? Each dream might be a story from a world erased before it began, yet somehow still able to speak. Imagine a philosopher seated beneath a flickering lamp, surrounded by scrolls and silent questions. The world outside is ordinary, yet within the philosopher's mind, entire universes bloom. What is possible? What is necessary? What is impossible? These are not idle abstractions, but the scaffolding of how we think about existence itself. To explore possible worlds is to wrestle with the boundaries of reality and to confront the haunting thought that existence might not be as singular as it appears. The inquiry begins with Aristotle, who divided reality into categories. What is actual, what is potential, and what is impossible? For him, an acorn contained the possibility of becoming an oak tree, but not of becoming a lion. This was more than botany. It was a framework for the structure of being itself. The world was full of dormant possibilities, waiting to unfold. Already, in this ancient framework, one hears the echo of worlds that might have been but never were. Centuries later, philosophers sharpened these distinctions into debates that continue to ripple through modern thought. In the Middle Ages, the question of divine omnipotence became a crucible for possibility. Could God create worlds different from ours? Could he have made a reality where humans never existed, or where time flowed backward, or where suffering did not prevail? Theologians argued fiercely over whether God was bound by logical necessity or free to summon any possible world into being. The question was not only about God, but about the very nature of possibility. Is it infinite, or does it bow before reason? With the Enlightenment, new voices reframed the debate. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz famously proclaimed that our universe is the best of all possible worlds. He meant not that it was perfect, but that of all logically possible realities, this one balanced good, evil, and order in the most harmonious way. For Leibniz, possibility was not chaos but design. Yet his claim carried a darker implication. If this is the best possible world, then the horrors we endure are somehow necessary. Voltaire mocked this idea in Candide, pointing out the absurdity of calling earthquakes, plagues, and wars necessary components of the best reality. The clash between Leibniz's optimism and Voltaire's skepticism captures the tension at the heart of possibility. Is the unrealized world a source of hope or a reminder of despair? In modern philosophy, the discussion shifted into a more precise, logical form. The 20th century introduced modal logic, a system for analyzing necessity and possibility. Thinkers like Saul Kripke and David Lewis transformed possibility from a vague notion into a rigorous tool. Lewis, in particular, pushed the boundaries with his modal realism, the claim that all possible worlds are just as real as our own, though inaccessible. According to him, there is a universe where history unfolded differently, where you chose another path, where Earth never formed. These worlds are not imaginary. They exist as fully as this one. The difference is only perspective. We call ours actual because we inhabit it. The idea is staggering, both liberating and terrifying. If Lewis is right, then reality is not singular but infinite, an endless library of universes stacked side by side. Every possibility is realized somewhere. The world where you never woke up this morning exists, as does the world where dinosaurs never went extinct, where Rome still rules, where humanity never appeared. Infinity stretches not forward, but sideways, multiplying worlds like mirrors facing mirrors. To some, this is exhilarating, a cosmic abundance. To others, it is unbearable, for it dilutes the meaning of this world, reducing it to one entry in an infinite catalog. But even if we set aside Lewis's bold realism, the philosophical concept of possible worlds remains useful. It allows us to clarify questions of morality, science, and identity. When we ask, what if I had chosen differently? We are invoking possible worlds. When scientists imagine alternate conditions of the universe, they too are mapping possibility. The realm of the possible is not mere fantasy. It is the playground of reason, a way to test truth by stretching its boundaries. At the emotional core lies contrast. The possible is both empowering and unsettling. To imagine possible worlds is to recognize freedom, the knowledge that things could be otherwise. Yet it also exposes fragility, the knowledge that our world is contingent, not necessary, hanging by the slimmest of cosmic threads. Every joy we know could easily not have been. Every tragedy we mourn could have unfolded differently. This awareness deepens our sense of wonder and despair at once. Cinematic imagery can help us feel the weight of this. Picture a vast hall of mirrors, each reflecting a different world. One where the pyramids were never built. One where humanity colonized the stars centuries ago. One where Earth is silent, lifeless, a frozen rock. To walk through this hall is to feel both awe and unease. You are real, but so are the countless versions of you who are strangers. You are unique, but only because you are limited to this corridor of possibility. The hall stretches endlessly, with no center, no final truth. Philosophy of the possible also bleeds into ethics. If countless outcomes are possible, how do we measure the weight of a single action? Some philosophers argue that morality itself depends on counterfactuals, judgments about what could or should have been. To say an action was wrong is to say a better possibility existed. To say something is necessary is to deny that any alternate world would improve upon it. Thus, morality and possibility are intertwined, weaving the fabric of choice and consequence. The section closes by returning to the haunting question: what do we do with the recognition of possibility? Do we embrace it as a source of freedom, celebrating the unrealized as proof that reality is open-ended? Or do we tremble at it as a reminder that our existence is one fragile roll of cosmic dice, surrounded by infinities that never were? Philosophy does not resolve the tension, it sharpens it. It leaves us standing at the edge of thought, gazing into the abyss of what could be, wondering whether the echoes we hear are our own imagination or the faint murmur of worlds denied existence. The screen opens to a slow pan through infinite stars, but soon the stars themselves begin to duplicate, branching like reflections in a shattered mirror. The camera pulls back further, revealing not a single universe, but countless universes, bubbles of light, vast and fragile, drifting in an endless sea. Some glow with familiar galaxies, others burn with strange colors, others collapse in silence before they can take shape. This is the vision that modern science has dared to propose, that ours may not be the only universe, that reality itself may be an infinite expanse of worlds, most forever hidden from us. This is the multiverse hypothesis. At first, the idea sounds like myth dressed in science. Multiple worlds, countless realities, infinite versions of ourselves. Such concepts echo old stories of gods, dream realms, and shadow worlds. Yet in the 20th and 21st centuries, physics began to whisper possibilities that were once confined to legend. The multiverse emerged not from fantasy, but from equations, from attempts to solve the deepest riddles of the cosmos. One of the earliest seeds was planted in quantum mechanics. According to the Copenhagen interpretation, particles exist in many states at once until observed. But what if observation does not collapse possibilities, but instead divides them? Hugh Everett's many worlds interpretation suggested that every quantum choice creates a branching of universes. When an electron spins one way instead of another, the universe splits. In one branch you look left, in another you look right. In one branch you live, in another you die. This view is breathtaking. Reality as a tree of infinite branches, every decision and chance events spinning off entire universes. Yet it is also disorienting. If everything happens somewhere, what meaning does this reality hold? Cosmology adds another layer. In the inflationary model of the Big Bang, the universe expanded faster than the speed of light in its first moments. Some theories suggest that this inflation did not stop everywhere at once, but continues in pockets, each spawning new universes with their own laws of physics. In this vision, our universe is just one bubble in a frothing cosmic foam. Some bubbles might resemble ours. Others may be utterly alien, governed by forces we cannot imagine. Perhaps in some, matter never formed. In others, stars and galaxies are arranged in unimaginable patterns. Infinity does not only mean vastness, it means possibility without end. String theory extends the idea even further. To reconcile the mathematics of the fundamental forces, string theorists propose hidden dimensions curled up at tiny scales. From this, a landscape of possible universes emerges, each with its own constants and rules. The number of potential universes could be as high as 10 to the power of 500, an incomprehensible multitude. The unsettling implication is that the structure of our universe, why gravity has its strength, why electrons have their mass, may not be unique or necessary. It may simply be one random draw from a cosmic lottery of possibilities. The emotional impact of these hypotheses cannot be ignored. To some, the multiverse is exhilarating, a liberation from the claustrophobia of a single fragile cosmos. If infinite universes exist, then existence is more abundant, more fertile, more wondrous than we ever dared imagine. To others, it is devastating. If everything happens somewhere, then individuality dissolves. Your choices, your loves, your triumphs. Are they truly meaningful if alternate versions of you live alternate outcomes in endless worlds? The multiverse both magnifies significance and erases it, offering hope and dread in equal measure. Cinematic contrasts sharpen this tension. Imagine a universe almost identical to ours, except that one star never formed, one planet never coalesced. Entire civilizations that might have been are erased by a single cosmic accident. Now imagine another universe, where life flourished in shapes beyond comprehension, where intelligence evolved not in brains, but in oceans of plasma or webs of light. Each of these worlds may be as real as ours, yet forever unreachable. The sheer weight of possibility threatens to overwhelm, and yet it draws us in, the mind unable to resist imagining. Critics argue that the multiverse cannot be tested. If other universes are beyond our cosmic horizon, then they lie forever outside empirical science. What cannot be measured, they warn, is not science but speculation. And yet defenders counter that the multiverse is not an invention but a consequence. If inflationary cosmology is correct, if quantum mechanics is true, if string theory is consistent, then the multiverse follows naturally. To reject, it would mean rejecting the very theories that already explain what we observe. Thus, the multiverse exists in a paradoxical space, born from science yet cloaked in mystery, as much philosophy as physics. The multiverse also reframes humanity's oldest questions. Why does our universe allow life? Why do the laws of physics seem fine-tuned for our existence? In a single universe model, these questions point to deep mystery or divine design. But in the multiverse, no mystery is needed. Out of infinite worlds, some will naturally have the right conditions, and we exist in one of them because we could exist nowhere else. This is the anthropic principle. We observe this universe not because it is special, but because we are here to observe it. For some, this explanation is elegant. For others, it is unsatisfying, stripping existence of purpose and reducing it to a cosmic accident. Yet beyond equations and arguments, the multiverse remains a story. It is a story of possibility unbounded, a story of realities stacked like endless pages in a book too vast to ever be read. Each universe whispers, "I could have been yours." And though we cannot cross into them, we feel their pull, like dreamers haunted by visions that dissolve at dawn. As the section draws to a close, the screen shows two mirrored images. One of our Earth, blue and fragile, suspended in black space. Another of a shadow Earth, its continents rearranged, its oceans glowing with strange light. Between them lies a thin line of possibility, a reminder that reality itself may be only one note in an infinite symphony. The question remains suspended. Is the multiverse a scientific truth, a philosophical speculation, or a message from worlds that never existed but somehow still call to us? The frame darkens, and the focus turns inward. From the cosmic vastness of galaxies and multiverses, the journey narrows to the most immediate and intimate mystery of all: consciousness. If the universe is everything that exists, then consciousness is the window through which existence is known. Without it, stars burn in silence, time passes unnoticed, and the grandeur of reality remains unperceived. But what is this awareness that allows us not only to experience the universe, but also to question it? Consciousness has baffled thinkers for centuries. Philosophers in ancient Greece, India, and China debated whether it was a gift of the gods, the essence of the soul, or an emergent property of nature. In modern science, the question remains as elusive as ever. We can measure brain waves, trace neural connections, and map regions of activity with astonishing precision. Yet the leap from electrical signals to the felt experience of being, the taste of sweetness, the color of red, the ache of longing, remains unexplained. This gap between physical processes and subjective experience is called the hard problem of consciousness, a phrase coined by philosopher David Chalmers. At its core, the hard problem asks, how does matter become mind? If neurons fire in complex patterns, why should that firing be accompanied by an inner life? Why should there be something it feels like to be human rather than nothing at all? Materialist theories argue that consciousness is an emergent property arising when matter reaches a certain complexity. But emergent does not mean explained. Saying that consciousness emerges from matter is like saying music emerges from strings. It describes the phenomenon, but does not uncover the essence of how it comes to be. Some propose that consciousness is not emergent, but fundamental. According to panpsychism, awareness is not unique to humans or even to living things, but a basic property of the universe itself. Just as mass and charge are fundamental, so too might be consciousness. In this view, every particle has a tiny spark of experience, and our minds are not the origin of consciousness, but its amplification. Though controversial, this idea bridges the gap between mind and matter, suggesting that awareness permeates reality in ways we barely comprehend. Neuroscience seeks more grounded explanations. Studies of split-brain patients, whose hemispheres were surgically divided, reveal that consciousness can fragment. Each hemisphere developed its own perceptions, decisions, even personalities. These findings challenge the notion of a single unified self and suggest that what we call I is a delicate coordination of many processes, a fragile integration rather than an indivisible soul. Similarly, experiments with anesthesia and altered states show how easily consciousness can fade, fracture, or expand. Our awareness is not fixed but fluid, flickering like a flame vulnerable to both biology and circumstance. Technology, too, pushes the frontier. Artificial intelligence raises the haunting question: Could machines one day become conscious? If consciousness arises from complexity, then a sufficiently advanced system might not only simulate awareness, but possess it. How would we know? Could a machine's claim to experience be dismissed as mere programming? Or would we have to accept that awareness had awakened in circuits and code? The possibility forces us to reconsider what consciousness is and whether it can exist beyond biology. Eastern traditions offer yet another perspective. In Vedantic and Buddhist philosophy, consciousness is not a byproduct, but the ground of being itself. The self, they argue, is an illusion. What appears as an individual I is a passing wave in the vast ocean of awareness. Meditation practices, refined over millennia, seek to pierce the veil of ego and glimpse pure consciousness without object or boundary. These traditions suggest that the mystery may not be solved by dissecting the brain alone, but by turning inward, by exploring the landscape of mind through direct experience. Cinematic imagery deepens the question. The screen shows neurons firing like galaxies, electrical storms in the brain mirrored by the storms of stars in space. Then the image dissolves into an eye opening, reflecting the universe itself within its pupil. The message is clear. To explore consciousness is to confront the mirror of reality. The observer and the observed may not be separate but part of a single fabric. Yet the enigma persists. Consciousness feels undeniable, more certain even than the existence of matter. We can doubt the world, doubt science, doubt even our memories, but we cannot doubt that we are experiencing. This certainty makes consciousness both the most immediate and the most mysterious phenomenon. Science dissects mechanisms. Philosophy wrestles with paradoxes. Spirituality speaks in metaphors. But no explanation fully satisfies. The ethical implications are profound. If animals are conscious, then their suffering carries moral weight. If machines become conscious, they may demand rights. If consciousness pervades the universe, then every stone and star carries a hidden significance. How we define awareness reshapes how we see ourselves, others, and the cosmos itself. Some thinkers suggest that consciousness may not be something to explain, but something to accept, a fact woven into reality as deeply as time or space. Others hold to the hope that science will one day unravel the mystery, that the subjective will be translated into the objective through deeper understanding of matter. Between these poles lies the human experience, suspended between certainty of awareness and uncertainty of its origin. As the section draws to its close, the imagery slows. A single human figure sits beneath a night sky, eyes closed, breathing. Above, galaxies turn. Within, thoughts ripple and fade. The voiceover asks, is consciousness the spark that makes the universe aware of itself? Or is it a dream spun by neurons, a fleeting illusion destined to vanish with the brain that carries it? The silence lingers, an invitation to contemplate rather than to conclude. The scene opens with vast cosmic imagery, galaxies colliding in slow motion, stars igniting in fields of darkness, and strange planets with burning skies. The voiceover speaks of the infinite hunger of physics, the way it pushes beyond the boundaries of what seems real, proposing laws that bend imagination itself. Our universe obeys rules that feel absolute. But what if there are other sets of rules, other universes where the impossible becomes ordinary? To grasp the notion of messages from worlds that never existed, we must first confront the physics of impossible worlds. Physics, at its heart, is not merely a catalog of facts. It is a language for describing possibility. The laws of motion, gravity, electromagnetism, and quantum mechanics do not simply govern what is, they hint at what could be. Within equations lie worlds uninhabited, scenarios unrealized. Every time a physicist writes a formula, they do not merely describe reality. They open a door to an infinity of others, most of which may never come to be. Take, for example, the multiverse hypothesis. Cosmologists studying the Big Bang realized that inflation, The rapid expansion of space-time in its earliest moments might not have happened just once. Instead, it may happen endlessly, spawning bubble universes, each with its own properties. Some would collapse in a flash, others would expand forever. Some might have galaxies, others nothing but chaos. Within this framework, our universe is not the inevitable outcome of creation, but one accidental instance among countless others. Every law we cherish, speed of light, strength of gravity, even time itself, could be entirely different elsewhere. But how do we even imagine such places? The answer lies in contrast. In our world, gravity binds galaxies together, but in a universe where gravity was weaker, stars might never ignite. Picture a cold void, filled with diffuse gas, where no warmth ever arises. Conversely, in a universe where gravity was stronger, stars might burn too fast, exploding before life could evolve. Whole histories erased before they begin. These are not idle fantasies, but the results of equations. The predictions of physics extended beyond the limits of observation. Quantum mechanics adds another layer of strangeness. At the smallest scales, particles exist in superposition, both here and not here, both wave and particle, both decayed and undecayed. The Copenhagen interpretation suggests reality collapses into one state when observed. But the many-worlds interpretation offers a far stranger picture. Each possibility continues in its own branch of reality. If true, then impossible worlds are not fiction, but inevitability. Every decision, every event, every roll of a cosmic dice spins out another world that we will never see. These ideas unsettle because they challenge the notion of a single, solid reality. They suggest that the laws we take as fixed may be contingent, even accidental. The strong nuclear force holds atomic nuclei together, slightly weaker, and matter itself could not exist. Slightly stronger, and stars would never forge the elements of life. Our reality feels perfectly balanced, but perhaps it is just one of many failed experiments in the cosmic laboratory. The equations of physics, cold and precise, whisper of universes that should exist, but never will. Cinematic imagery intensifies the mystery. The screen shows branching rivers of light, each splitting into new channels, infinite and recursive. One branch glows warm with stars, another fizzles into nothing, another twists into strange geometries where the rules of logic fail. The narrator's voice asks, are these universes truly there, waiting beyond our reach? Or are they ghost worlds, mathematics without matter? Some physicists argue that these worlds are real, that to deny them is to deny the full implications of quantum theory. Others caution that without evidence, they remain speculation, elegant fictions disguised in mathematical form. Yet even if they're not physically real, their existence as possible solutions changes how we view reality. The universe no longer appears as the only story, but as one chapter in an infinite library. Every law of nature is a filter, selecting one book from a shelf that stretches forever. The emotional pull of this idea is immense. On one side, it humbles us. Our world, with all its beauty, may be one random outcome among endless failures. On the other, it inspires awe. The cosmos is richer, stranger, more abundant than we can fathom. For every star we see, there may be countless worlds unseen, not because they are far away, but because they are written in laws incompatible with ours. And here lies the haunting connection to our theme. Perhaps the messages we sense, the dreams, the myths, the fleeting intuitions are echoes of these impossible worlds. Not literal transmissions, but resonances like vibrations from a string that has never been plucked. Physics shows us the possible, but philosophy asks whether possibility itself has weight, whether unrealized worlds can still cast shadows across our minds. The narrative slows to a contemplative beat. A physicist scribbles equations on a chalkboard, symbols flowing like incantations. As the chalk strikes, the camera cuts to images of entire universes igniting and collapsing, born only to vanish. The implication is clear: impossible worlds are not confined to imagination. They are embedded in the mathematics of reality itself. We are left with a question that lingers like a riddle. If these impossible worlds exist in theory, are they truly non-existent? Or are they silently alive in the fabric of possibility, waiting only for a different roll of the cosmic dice? Perhaps the messages we seek are not whispers from other universes, but reminders that the impossible is never fully erased. It exists just beyond the threshold of reality, carried forever in the equations of physics. A fire flickers in the dark, and ancient figures gather around it. They tell stories of gods who walked the earth, of worlds that burned and were born anew, of messages sent through dreams and visions. Before telescopes measured stars or laboratories dissected atoms, myths and symbols were humanity's first attempt to decode the messages of existence. They were not mere entertainment, but maps of meaning, guiding societies through fear, uncertainty, and wonder. To speak of worlds that never existed is to step into the realm of myth, where imagination and reality blur. Every culture has its cosmogony, a story of how the world began. The Babylonians spoke of Tiamat, the dragon of chaos, slain by Marduk to form the heavens and earth. The Norse told of Ymir, the primordial giant, whose body was carved into mountains, oceans, and sky. The Maya envisioned the gods attempting creation again and again, shaping and destroying worlds until they succeeded with humanity. These stories reveal a truth deeper than literal description. They echo the sense that reality could have been otherwise. Each myth acknowledges the possibility of other worlds, worlds that failed, fell, or never came to be. Symbols carry this power forward. A serpent coiled around itself, eating its tail, becomes the Ouroboros, an emblem of cycles, eternity, and worlds folding back into themselves. The tree of life, rising from earth to heaven, suggests a ladder between realms, roots in the soil of mortality and branches in the sky of divinity. The labyrinth, the shadow, the hero's journey. These are not arbitrary images, but recurring symbols that seem to emerge across civilizations separated by oceans and centuries. Why? Perhaps because they are not inventions, but discoveries, fragments of a shared inner landscape where unrealized worlds leave their imprint. Psychologist Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, a realm of archetypes that transcend individual experience. For Jung, symbols were not mere decorations, but expressions of hidden truths that shaped human behavior. A myth about a god descending into the underworld was not just a tale. It was an image of the human psyche confronting death, fear, and transformation. In this view, myths are messages, not from other civilizations or deities, but from the deep architecture of the mind itself. Yet the mystery remains: why does the human mind produce these images at all? Why do so many people, across so many ages, dream of worlds that never were, yet seem to carry meaning? Consider the myth of Atlantis. Plato described it as a great civilization swallowed by the sea, a cautionary tale of hubris and downfall. For centuries, seekers searched for evidence of its ruins, convinced it must have existed. Perhaps it never did. Perhaps it was always a symbolic story of collapse, a warning that transcends geography. And yet, the persistence of Atlantis in human imagination suggests something more: a longing for a lost world, a parallel reality where greatness rose and fell, a world that may never have existed in stone, but exists powerfully in mind. Contrast sharpens the scene. Science dissects myths as cultural artifacts, products of human storytelling shaped by environment and history. To the anthropologist, they are adaptive, teaching morals, uniting tribes, providing shared identity. But to the seeker, myths feel like whispers from beyond, messages coded in narrative form, speaking of truths we sense but cannot prove. Between these poles lies the enduring mystery. Are myths simply the stories we tell ourselves, Or are they reflections of realities that never took form? The cinematic rhythm quickens. We see carvings on temple walls, cave paintings of half-human, half-animal figures, manuscripts illuminated with symbols glowing in gold. Across them all, a common thread emerges, humanity reaching beyond the visible world. Whether through gods, monsters, or cosmic cycles, myth insists that our reality is not the only one. It suggests that shadows of other worlds press against ours, demanding expression through symbol. Even in the modern age, myths persist, reshaped into new forms. Superheroes, science fiction, and cinematic universes are the myths of today. They, too, imagine alternate worlds, dimensions where physics bends, where heroes rise and fall, where civilization teeters on the edge of catastrophe or ascends into utopia. These stories grip us not because they are factual, but because they awaken something ancient, a resonance with the unrealized possibilities woven into our consciousness. The power of myth is emotional. To hear the story of a flood that wipes away all life, leaving only a chosen remnant, is to feel awe, fear, and renewal. To follow a hero into the underworld and back is to experience death and rebirth in symbolic form. Myths hold their audience because they speak in contrasts: hope against despair, creation against destruction, mortality against eternity. These contrasts keep the listener's attention, binding them to the story as if the stakes were their own. And perhaps they are. Myths, after all, shape behavior. A people who believe they were forged in the struggle of gods may see their own battles as sacred. A civilization that dreams of paradise lost may seek to rebuild it or destroy itself in the attempt. Unrealized worlds, when told through myth, can change the course of real history. They may not exist in matter, but they exist in consequence. The fire fades, the camera pulls back to reveal the night sky, constellations glowing like ancient symbols written across the cosmos. The narrator's voice lingers. When humanity dreamed of gods, monsters, and vanished worlds, were we only imagining? Or were we receiving messages from possibilities that never came to pass? Myths may not be true in the literal sense, but in the language of symbols, they remind us that the boundaries of reality are never fixed. The camera fades to black, then reopens on a chalkboard filled with strange, elegant symbols, equations stretching like constellations across a dark sky. A voiceover begins, calm yet resonant. If myths were humanity's first attempt to speak of worlds that never existed, then mathematics is our most precise. Numbers, patterns, and formulas are not simply tools for measurement. They are portals into realms of pure possibility. Unlike myths, which cloak meaning in symbol and metaphor, mathematics reveals hidden structures that may never manifest in reality, yet remain undeniably true. It is a language that speaks fluently of the unreal. From the earliest counting stones to the algorithms running today's supercomputers, mathematics has always hinted at realities beyond the tangible. Negative numbers once seemed absurd. How could one have fewer than nothing? Yet their invention opened pathways to entire systems of thought, enabling advances from algebra to banking. Imaginary numbers, too, defied intuition. The square root of -1 cannot exist in the material world, yet equations built upon it now power technologies like electrical engineering and quantum mechanics. In both cases, numbers that should not exist reshaped the world we live in. Mathematics, then, is not bound by what is. It charts what could be. Platonic philosophy sharpened this view. To Plato, mathematical forms were not inventions of the human mind, but eternal realities. Circles, triangles, and numbers existed in a higher realm of truth, independent of whether humans recognize them. In this perspective, mathematics reveals a universe of perfect, abstract worlds, worlds that never existed in physical form, yet endure as timeless ideals. The circle drawn in sand is imperfect, but the mathematical circle, flawless, infinite, is unchanging. This realm of the abstract may be closer to the heart of unreality than anything else we know. Cinematic contrast heightens the mystery. The screen shows a medieval scholar laboring by candlelight, scratching equations on parchment. Then, in a flash, the same equations materialize into modern computer code, generating 3D simulations of impossible geometries. The narrator asks, are these shapes inventions of the mind, or messages from a reality that exists only in mathematics? Consider fractals. Discovered by Benoit Mandelbrot, fractals are patterns that repeat infinitely, self-similar at every scale. They can be described with simple formulas, yet their visual complexity rivals the natural world. Coastlines, snowflakes, clouds, all echo fractal structures. But the Mandelbrot set itself is a purely mathematical creation. It has no mass, no atoms, no physical presence. Still, it is inexhaustible, a universe of infinite detail hidden in a single equation. Does this make it a world that never existed, or one that exists more fundamentally than the physical world, as an eternal mathematical truth? Another example is higher dimensional geometry. We inhabit 3 dimensions of space, yet mathematics easily describes 4, 5, or 10 dimensions. These spaces can be visualized, at least partially, through projections and models. Physics even relies on them. String theory, for instance, proposes that reality requires up to 11 dimensions to function. Even if these dimensions are never observed, they remain consistent within mathematics. They are worlds fully formed in logic, awaiting realization or perhaps forever condemned to remain unreal. The tension between mathematics and reality deepens in physics. Equations often predict phenomena long before they are discovered. The planet Neptune was located not by telescope, but by mathematical calculation, deducing its presence from irregularities in Uranus's orbit. The existence of antimatter was first written in the language of equations before it was confirmed in laboratories. Again and again, mathematics seems to know more than the physical universe has revealed. It is as if math whispers of possible worlds ahead of time, some of which later crystallize into being, others that remain phantoms. But there is danger in this elegance. Not every mathematical world becomes real. Equations can describe universes where gravity repels instead of attracts, where time loops endlessly, or where particles dance to rules unlike anything we know. These solutions exist within mathematics, but may never manifest physically. They are ghost worlds, consistent yet uninhabited, truths that never find embodiment. This duality, the richness of mathematics against the silence of nature, forces us to confront a question: is mathematics discovered or invented? If discovered, then unreal worlds have a kind of eternal existence, whether or not they become real. If invented, then mathematics is our imagination given structure, and unreal worlds are projections of our minds. The emotional resonance here is profound. On one side, mathematics inspires awe, offering glimpses into infinities beyond comprehension. On the other, it unsettles, suggesting that most possible worlds remain locked in abstraction, never crossing into reality. To explore mathematics is to wander a gallery of impossible universes, each framed by equations, each internally coherent, yet most forever unrealized. Cinematic imagery carries the message further. The camera dives into the Mandelbrot set, infinite spirals blooming endlessly. Then it shifts to computer models of higher dimensions, strange forms folding and intersecting like living origami. The voiceover whispers, perhaps mathematics is not just the language of a universe, but the language of universes that never came to be. And yet, mathematics also shapes reality. The GPS in a smartphone would not function without the mathematics of relativity. The internet relies on number theory, prime factorization, and probability. Bridges, skyscrapers, rockets, all are the children of equations. Thus, mathematics does more than dream of impossible worlds. It selects certain ones and brings them to life. It is both map and architect, both dreamer and engineer. The section closes on a paradox. The narrator's voice slows. If mathematics describes not only our world, but countless others, most of which will never exist, then every equation is a message, not from the world we know, but from the worlds we never will. Perhaps the language of numbers is not only the key to understanding reality, but the echo of reality's denied existence. The screen fades, leaving only a single equation glowing against the dark. E equals mc squared, a symbol of power that reshaped the world, but also a reminder of the infinite equations that lie dormant, waiting in silence. A single violin note pierces the silence, trembling like a thread of light across the dark. Then the sound multiplies, piano chords, voices rising in harmony, the swell of an orchestra that seems to open a space larger than the room itself. Art does this. It builds worlds out of nothing. Music, painting, sculpture, poetry, each becomes a message, not from the world as it is, but from worlds that never existed, worlds imagined yet felt as profoundly as anything real. This section explores how creativity itself becomes a channel for the unreal, transforming human imagination into something that feels like a transmission from beyond. Music is the most ethereal of the arts, unfolding in time and vanishing into silence. And yet, within its structure, we hear entire landscapes of emotion and possibility. A minor chord can conjure sorrow more ancient than any personal grief. A triumphant fanfare can stir courage in hearts that had lost it. Composers often describe the process as if they were listening to something outside themselves, catching fragments of melodies drifting in from another place. Beethoven, deaf in his later years, claimed to hear symphonies fully formed in his mind, transcribing them like a scribe copying messages. Where did these notes come from, if not from a world beyond the one he inhabited? Visual art carries similar power. A painter lays color upon canvas, but the image that emerges is not simply pigment. It is a window. Van Gogh's swirling skies, Dali's melting clocks, Kandinsky's abstract symphonies of form. These are not mere depictions of the world, but portals to others. Each painting whispers of a reality that never physically existed, yet feels alive. Surrealism, in particular, reveled in this tension, creating landscapes that combine dream and waking life, bending reality until it revealed impossible truths. To stand before such art is to be addressed, to feel a message arriving from an elsewhere that cannot be found on any map. The mystery deepens when art anticipates reality. Science fiction writers imagined submarines, space travel, and artificial intelligence long before they materialized. Architects dreamed of impossible structures that later, with new technology, became possible. Even music, in its exploration of new tonalities, sometimes foreshadowed shifts in culture before they happened. It is as though art captures echoes of futures not yet born, or of possible worlds that may never be. In this sense, art is not only an expression of the unreal, but also a message bearer, a bridge between what is and what could have been. Psychology offers an explanation. Creative inspiration often comes from the unconscious, where fragments of memory, emotion, and imagination mingle freely. When an artist creates, they are giving form to these hidden processes. But Jung's vision of the collective unconscious suggests something larger, that symbols, archetypes, and creative visions may arise from a shared well of human experience, transcending the individual. If true, then every masterpiece is more than personal. It is a message from the shared dream of humanity, shaped by worlds of meaning that never fully existed in material form. Contrast frames the debate. To the rationalist, art is invention, shaped by cultural context and personal psychology. A painting is pigment, a symphony is vibration, a poem is language arranged with care. Nothing more. Yet to the dreamer, art feels like a transmission, something arriving through the artist rather than from them. Great artists themselves often describe this sensation. Michelangelo claimed he was not creating sculptures, but releasing figures trapped in marble. Mozart spoke of hearing music all at once, as if it had always existed and he merely wrote it down. For them, art was not invention, but discovery. Cinematic imagery intensifies the point. The screen shifts between a hand striking piano keys and stars pulsing in distant galaxies, their rhythms matching. A brushstroke transforms into a river delta scene from above, colors blending into planetary surfaces. The suggestion is subtle but clear. The act of creation may be humanity's way of translating the language of the unreal into forms we can touch, hear, and see. The emotional power of art is undeniable. A painting can bring someone to tears, though they cannot explain why. A song can inspire revolution or soothe despair. These reactions feel involuntary, as though the art bypasses reason and speaks directly to something older, deeper. This universality raises the question: if art can awaken feelings that transcend the individual, could it be that art is not only expression but communication? Messages traveling across the boundaries of self, culture, even time? Modern neuroscience reveals that when people create or experience art, vast regions of the brain synchronize. Listening to music lights up not only auditory centers, but also areas tied to emotion, memory, and movement. Viewing art engages the same regions used for empathy and spatial reasoning. The brain does not treat art as decoration, but as essential experience. And yet, this biological explanation does not diminish the mystery. It heightens it. Why are we wired to be moved by forms, colors, and sounds that refer to no survival necessity? Why does art, which often describes worlds that never existed, feel indispensable to existence itself? Perhaps the answer lies in contrast, once more. The real world binds us with necessity, survival, labor, gravity. Art frees us into possibility. It whispers of other ways the world could be, even if only for a moment. It is both escape and revelation, fantasy and truth. That duality is what keeps us enthralled. Art shows us the impossible, while reminding us that the impossible still matters. The section closes with a montage: a cave painting, a cathedral choir, a dancer spinning, a digital artist rendering a virtual world. Across millennia, the mediums change, but the impulse is the same. The narrator's voice lowers. When we create, are we expressing ourselves, or are we answering messages from worlds we will never inhabit? Every note, every brushstroke, every story may be a fragment of an unreal world carried into this one. The violin returns, the note fading into silence, as though the message has been delivered, but not yet fully understood. There's a silence heavier than any sound, the silence of things left behind. Imagine walking through an ancient ruin. The stones are weathered, the air is still, and yet you feel the weight of presences long vanished. Civilizations rise and fall, leaving behind traces of their lives: pottery shards, abandoned temples, fragments of language carved into stone. These artifacts are not just remnants. They are half-faded messages, whispers from worlds that once were and are no longer. But what about the messages of worlds that never came to be? Dreams abandoned, futures imagined, but unrealized. Their silence, too, is profound, and it presses upon us in ways we rarely notice. Throughout history, countless ideas never took root. In forgotten notebooks, philosophers outlined systems of thought that were never adopted. Inventors sketched machines that never left the page. Poets drafted verses that never reached an audience. These are the artifacts of unrealized worlds. Each one is a signal interrupted, a message cut off mid-transmission. And yet, when uncovered centuries later, they feel like time capsules, not of what was, but of what might have been. The silence of these abandoned worlds is not empty. It hums with potential, like a radio tuned to static, carrying the suggestion of voices just beyond reach. Consider the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro. Its streets, carefully laid out with precision, suggest a society of order and vision. But script remains undeciphered, its language mute. To stand before those ruins is to be confronted with silence, but also with the possibility that the stones still carry messages we cannot yet hear. Are they waiting, or are they lost forever? The ambiguity is haunting. This silence also manifests in the night sky. Astronomers estimate billions of planets orbit stars across the galaxy, many of them Earth-like. Some may have once harbored life, or even civilizations. Yet the cosmos is quiet. Radio telescopes scan the heavens, searching for transmissions, but none arrive. This absence has been called the Great Silence, an almost unbearable void, given the probability of others out there. Perhaps civilizations rise and fall too quickly to meet. Perhaps their messages drift on frequencies we cannot detect. Or perhaps those worlds never existed, only imagined by the equations we write. Each possibility is as unsettling as it is awe-inspiring. Silence itself becomes a kind of contrast framing. On one side, there is absence, no voice, no signal, no sound. On the other, there is the deafening suggestion that something should be there. It is like standing in a vast concert hall, expecting music, but hearing only the echo of your own breath. That tension between expectation and emptiness becomes its own kind of message. The silence points us toward the shape of what might have been. Human memory works the same way. When we think of lives not lived, paths we could have taken, choices we did not make, we encounter the silence of our own abandoned worlds. Each alternative future is like a phantom self, forever mute, yet lingering in the corners of imagination. Psychologists call this counterfactual thinking, the mind's tendency to dwell on what could have happened, but did not. And in this sense, we are each surrounded by the silence of unmade worlds, carrying them like invisible companions through our real lives. Artists and writers have long been haunted by these silences. Kafka filled his journals with fragments of stories never completed, entire universes abandoned in mid-construction. The ruins of unfinished cathedrals across Europe stand as stone testaments to human ambition cut short. Even science bears such ghosts. Theories once celebrated, now discarded, their traces still echoing in old books and lecture halls. Each silence is both tragic and fertile. Tragic because the voice is lost. Fertile because the silence itself invites us to imagine what might have filled it. Cinematically, the sequence unfolds with images of abandoned spaces, empty theaters, rusting ships, ghost towns overtaken by sand. The camera lingers on details, a chair left askew, a clock stopped at a particular hour, a mural faded into near invisibility. The narration asks, do these places speak through their silence? Or is it only our hunger for meaning that makes them echo? The absence becomes presence, the void transformed into mystery. Philosophically, silence raises questions about time itself. Are abandoned worlds truly gone, or do they exist in some parallel dimension of possibility? Quantum physics suggests that every decision might branch into multiple outcomes, entire universes splitting off endlessly. If so, the silence we feel may only be the distance between us and the versions of reality where those worlds were not abandoned at all. Perhaps they thrive elsewhere, sending messages we can never intercept. The emotional impact of this silence is undeniable. It evokes longing, melancholy, awe. It confronts us with fragility, how easily a message, a life, a world can be erased. And yet, there is resilience too. Even in silence, there is resonance. Even in absence, there is presence. The quiet invites us to lean closer, to listen harder, to imagine. That act of listening may be the message itself, that not all worlds need to exist for their echoes to shape us. The section closes with a slow fade to black. The only sound is a faint, distant hum, almost indistinguishable from silence. The narrator's voice whispers, the silence of abandoned worlds is not emptiness. It is possibility waiting for ears that may never come. The screen remains dark for several seconds, the silence pressing in, daring the audience to feel the weight of worlds unspoken. In a laboratory filled with the quiet hum of machines, a scientist adjusts the dials of a radio telescope. The massive dish outside points toward the stars, listening to the universe. But what it receives is not the clear voice of another world, only static, waves of noise, broken bursts, hints of patterns that dissolve as soon as they appear. To many, this static would be nothing. But to those who study it, it is possibility incarnate. For within the chaos of noise, there may be hidden order. A signal, a pattern, a message that proves we're not alone. But what if the signals we sometimes detect are not real? What if they are ghosts of mathematics, products of chance, or echoes from worlds that never truly existed? This is the paradox at the heart of the science of imaginary signals. From the earliest days of radio astronomy, scientists have heard strange things. In 1967, a young graduate student, Jocelyn Bell, detected unusual pulses in the data, regular bursts of radio waves that came from far beyond Earth. For a moment, the team wondered if they had intercepted communication from intelligent beings. They even jokingly labeled it LGM-1, Little Green Man. The truth turned out to be less exotic, but no less astonishing. The signals were from a pulsar, a rapidly spinning neutron star sending beams of radiation across space. What had seemed like a message was, in fact, a natural phenomenon. Yet the story reveals a deeper truth. Before we decode them, all signals feel like they could be messages. This tension between real and imagined signals continues today. Radio telescopes pick up bursts known as fast radio bursts, FRBs, millisecond flashes of radio energy that appear and vanish without warning. Their sources remain mysterious. Some come from distant galaxies, billions of light years away. Scientists suspect they may be tied to magnetars, exotic stars with immense magnetic fields. But others remain unexplained. Each new detection revives the same question. Are these natural events, or is there something or someone trying to speak across the void? The answer is never simple. Science depends on interpretation. A signal only becomes meaningful when patterns emerge, when noise becomes order. But humans are pattern-seeking creatures, sometimes too eager to find meaning where there is none. The phenomenon of pareidolia, the tendency to see faces in clouds, to hear voices in random noise, reminds us of our vulnerability. In the 1960s, early computer models of cosmic background radiation seemed to show faint patterns that looked artificial. Later analysis revealed they were artifacts of the instruments themselves. Even now, false positives occur. Dust on a telescope lens, interference from a passing satellite, or even a microwave oven in a nearby staff room have all produced signals once mistaken for cosmic messages. In this sense, science continually walks the line between discovery and illusion, between worlds that are and worlds that are not. Imaginary signals are not limited to astronomy. In neuroscience, researchers studying brain activity often stumble upon ghost patterns, correlations that appear meaningful but vanish upon closer scrutiny. In particle physics, detectors sometimes reveal anomalies that suggest new particles or forces, only to later be explained as background noise. Each time, the scientific community oscillates between exhilaration and disappointment. These false signals are like shadows of unreal worlds, glimpses of possibilities that briefly seemed real but faded upon inspection. And yet, even when disproven, they leave an imprint. They remind us of how thin the boundary is between the known and the imagined. The cinematic tension of these discoveries lies in their drama. Consider the first time astronomers detected repeating FRBs. The news exploded with speculation. Was this a cosmic lighthouse, a beacon from an advanced civilization? Days later, the cautious voices of scientists added restraint, suggesting magnetars or other astrophysical explanations. But by then, the mystery had already captured the imagination of millions. This interplay between science and story reveals a crucial truth. Even imaginary signals have power. They shape how we see the universe, how we dream of what might be waiting. Philosophically, this raises an unsettling question. Does a message need to be real to have meaning? If people are inspired, mobilized, or filled with awe by a false signal, has it failed in its purpose, or has it fulfilled a different one? A mirage in the desert may not be real water, but it still moves the thirsty wanderer forward. In the same way, imaginary signals may not come from other worlds, but they fuel our search, sharpen our tools, and push us deeper into mystery. In this sense, even the unreal shapes reality. Science thrives on contrast, between the clarity of confirmed data and the uncertainty of noise, between knowledge and speculation. Without false signals, we would never refine our instruments. Without mistakes, we would never sharpen our theories. Each ghostly transmission, each phantom pattern, is a lesson written into the static. The silence of the cosmos becomes richer because of these brief interruptions. They're like whispers in a crowded room, half heard, inviting us to lean closer, to listen harder. The emotional resonance of this scientific quest is undeniable. Every false alarm carries both disappointment and hope. There is the crushing realization that we are still alone, or at least still unable to prove otherwise. But there is also the thrill of possibility. The search itself becomes a message, telling us that humanity is willing to keep listening, no matter how faint the signal, no matter how long the silence stretches. This persistence transforms the very act of listening into a kind of faith. Not religious faith, but faith in curiosity, in discovery, in the idea that even imaginary signals point us somewhere important. The cinematic imagery of this section unfolds through contrasts. The vast silence of radio telescopes at night, their giant dishes rotating slowly under a dome of stars. The chaotic hum of data scrolling across computer screens. Scientists leaning forward, breath held, as a strange new burst appears. Then the reveal, a microwave door opening, a bird flying past the dish, an error in the code. The tension collapses into both laughter and frustration. But the sequence does not end there. The final image shows the telescope again, still turning, still listening because the search never stops. The section closes with a voiceover, low and deliberate. Every false signal is still a message. Not from the stars, perhaps, but from ourselves, from our hunger to believe, from our refusal to stop listening. And maybe, one day, the static will part, and the voice we thought we imagined will turn out to be real. The screen lingers on a final shot of a radio telescope silhouetted against the Milky Way, the stars glittering like countless unanswered messages. In a quiet library, dust particles drift through shafts of light. A philosopher leans over a book, pen in hand, staring into the blank margin as if searching for answers not yet written. For centuries, thinkers have been haunted by a single question. What is the status of things that do not exist? Are they simply nothing, emptiness without form? Or do they hold a strange kind of being, shadows of possibility that shape the real? This section explores how philosophy has wrestled with the unreal, asking whether our encounters with worlds that never existed are mere illusions or profound truths about existence itself. Plato was among the first to give the unreal a kind of dignity. To him, the physical world was a dim shadow of eternal forms, perfect ideals that existed beyond time and space. A circle drawn on paper was imperfect, but the form of the circle was flawless, eternal, and real in a higher sense. In this way, the unreal was not absence, but presence of a different order. The form of justice, the form of beauty, the form of truth, none of these existed in the material world, but all shaped human experience profoundly. For Plato, the unreal was more real than the real. Centuries later, Aristotle offered a contrast. To him, the unreal was potential. An acorn was not yet an oak tree, but it carried the potential within it. This potentiality was not nothing. It was a kind of being in waiting. In this framework, unreal worlds are like seeds. They do not exist yet, but they shape the trajectory of what could become. An unreal invention, an unreal society, an unreal future. All are possibilities latent in the present. They may never actualize, but their presence still matters. Medieval philosophers wrestled with the problem of universals, whether concepts like redness or humanity truly existed or merely names we applied. Nominalists insisted that only individuals exist, while realists claimed that universals have their own reality. This debate was more than abstract. It was about whether the unreal, the general, the ideal could truly exist. To deny it was to bind reality to particulars. To affirm it was to admit that unseen worlds of meaning hover around every object we encounter. Modern philosophy added new layers. Descartes doubted everything, including the reality of the external world, but he could not doubt his own thinking. I think, therefore I am, became the foundation of certainty. Yet this raised another unsettling question. What if much of what we perceive is unreal? Dreams feel real until we wake. Hallucinations feel real to those who experience them. How can we ever be sure the world itself is not an elaborate illusion? The unreal became not only a philosophical puzzle, but an existential threat. Hume, skeptical of metaphysical claims, argued that our minds constantly imagine connections and causes that may not exist. To him, the unreal was woven into the very fabric of thought. Kant, in contrast, suggested that reality, as we know it, is filtered through categories of perception, space, time, causality. The thing in itself, beyond these categories, remained forever inaccessible. Thus, much of what we call real may already be unreal in a deeper sense, shaped by the limits of human cognition. The 20th century brought existentialists and phenomenologists who reframed the question. Sartre declared that nothingness is not absence, but a force within human consciousness. When we imagine possibilities, when we say no to the world as it is, we invoke the unreal as a creative power. Heidegger spoke of being toward death, the unreal inevitability of our own non-existence shaping how we live. For these thinkers, the unreal was not a shadow to be dismissed, but a vital dimension of existence. Even in analytic philosophy, where clarity and rigor dominate, the unreal finds a foothold. Logicians and philosophers of language debate the status of fictional entities. When we speak of Sherlock Holmes, are we referring to nothing or to something real within the realm of fiction? Possible world semantics, developed by thinkers like Saul Kripke and David Lewis, treats unreal worlds as real in their own domain, complete, coherent worlds existing alongside our own, differing only in detail. In this view, the unreal is not absence, but multiplicity. Every possible outcome, every variation, exists in its own right. The emotional weight of these debates is profound. If unreal worlds are mere illusions, then our dreams, our art, our imagined futures dissolve into nothing. But if unreal worlds have a kind of being, then every story we tell, every thought we dream, participates in reality itself. The boundary between imagination and existence blurs, leaving us suspended between awe and unease. Cinematically, the philosophy of the unreal can be visualized through shifting images. Plato's cave, shadows flickering on the wall. Aristotle's acorn slowly transforming into a towering oak. Medieval monks debating under candlelight. Manuscripts open. Descartes alone in his study, doubting everything. Sartre walking the streets of Paris, confronting the weight of nothingness. Each scene flows into the next, a chain of thinkers reaching across centuries, all grappling with the same haunting question. What does it mean for something not to exist? The contrast framing sharpens. On one side, the realist insistence that only what exists materially can matter. On the other, the idealist conviction that the unreal is the most important thing of all. Between these poles, humanity has lived, dreamed, created, and suffered. The unreal is not simply an intellectual curiosity. It is the stage on which our existence unfolds. The section ends with a voiceover that draws the threads together. Perhaps the unreal is not separate from the real. Perhaps it is its twin, its shadow, its mirror, its echo. Without the unreal, there would be no dreams, no futures, no meanings. And if worlds that never existed still shape our lives, perhaps their absence is another form of presence. As the words fade, the camera lingers on the philosopher's pen hovering over the blank page, the line not yet written, an unreal sentence waiting to become real. A dream drifts like smoke through the mind, vivid in the moment yet slipping away as soon as we wake. The colors fade, the voices vanish, and by the time the sun rises, what felt like an entire world collapses into fragments. And yet, those lost dreams linger in subtle ways, influencing moods, decisions, and even art. They are the forgotten blueprints of worlds that never came to be, fleeting architectures of the mind, dissolved by the daylight, but leaving traces in our waking life. This section dives into the haunting presence of forgotten dreams, asking how these unreal experiences continue to shape us even when we cannot remember them. Throughout history, cultures have regarded dreams as messages. To the ancient Egyptians, dreams were windows into the divine. To the Greeks, they were omens. Native traditions across the world treated dreams as travels of the soul into realms unseen. But what are the dreams we forget? If dreams are messages, then forgotten dreams are messages unopened, letters lost in the post, entire conversations with the unknown erased before they could be read. Their absence carries weight, for it reminds us that we are constantly in contact with something beyond ourselves, even if the record is lost. Modern science adds another layer. Neurologists studying REM sleep note that we dream every night, multiple times, even if we remember none of it. Most dreams vanish within minutes of waking, erased by the brain's chemical shift from night to day. And yet, even unremembered dreams affect us. Sleep studies show that dreaming regulates emotions, processes memory, and helps solve problems. A forgotten dream may prevent a breakdown, inspire a mood, or shift a perspective, all without our awareness. These hidden effects suggest that forgotten dreams are not gone. They are woven invisibly into who we are. The imagery of these forgotten dreams is cinematic. Imagine a massive library, its shelves filled with books, each one representing a dream. Some volumes are open, read, remembered. Others are locked, their pages fading to dust. And yet, the presence of those unread books still shapes the library's silence. The forgotten dream is like a ghost wandering through the mind's corridors, silent, invisible, but not without influence. Philosophically, forgotten dreams challenge our understanding of reality. If we cannot remember them, do they exist? Or do they only matter when recalled? The paradox is sharp. Something can be both gone and present at once. We lived it, yet we cannot summon it. This mirrors the nature of unreal worlds, felt but never held, existing in the tension between presence and absence. Forgotten dreams are microcosms of all unreal worlds, fleeting, powerful, elusive. Contrast framing sharpens the point. On one side, the rationalist dismisses forgotten dreams as meaningless. If you cannot recall it, it may as well not have happened. On the other side, the dreamer insists that even the faintest echo matters, that forgotten dreams continue to shape our emotions and choices in ways science cannot yet measure. Between these positions lies mystery, the weight of what we cannot name, yet cannot ignore. Artistic and literary traditions have long explored the power of forgotten dreams. Coleridge claimed that his famous poem, Kubla Khan, was born from a dream, cut short when he awoke to a knock at his door, leaving him with only fragments. Countless painters and poets describe similar experiences. Visions glimpsed in sleep, remembered only in part, yet powerful enough to shape enduring works. The forgotten dream, thus, becomes not just personal, but cultural. It is the hidden wellspring from which entire artistic movements draw their life. Psychologically, forgotten dreams are tied to repression and desire. Freud suggested that dreams conceal wishes too threatening for the conscious mind. If this is true, then forgotten dreams may be the ones most charged, most revealing, erased not by accident, but by necessity. Jung, by contrast, saw forgotten dreams as fragments of the collective unconscious, archetypes rising and sinking again into the depths. To him, forgotten dreams connect us to something larger than the self, something timeless. Cinematically, this section could be illustrated with blurred images. A person reaching for a door that dissolves, a cityscape fading in a mist, a child's laughter echoing in an empty room. The camera cuts back to the dreamer waking, eyes opening in confusion, the details already gone. Yet as the day unfolds, something lingers, an inexplicable sadness, a sudden burst of creativity, a decision made without knowing why. The forgotten dream, though lost, leaves a fingerprint. The emotional weight of this phenomenon is profound. We feel frustration when a dream slips away, as though we've lost something precious. We feel longing when we sense we've touched a world more vivid than waking life, only to be denied access. And sometimes we feel fear, knowing we may have glimpsed something unsettling, something we are almost grateful to have forgotten. This emotional ambivalence is itself a message that dreams, even lost ones, matter deeply to our humanity. The section closes with a voiceover. Every night, worlds are born in the theater of the mind. Most vanish at dawn, forgotten before they can be named. But their silence is not emptiness. It is a presence that shapes us in ways we cannot see. Forgotten dreams are messages from worlds that never existed, yet still leave their mark upon the waking soul. The screen fades to black, leaving the audience with the sensation of a dream dissolving just out of reach. A child sits cross-legged on the floor, eyes wide, clutching a book as if it were a doorway. In their imagination, the ink on the page becomes living landscapes, castles rising from the mist, alien skies filled with twin suns, characters who speak and breathe as if real. Fictional universes are not mere stories. They are architectures of possibility, entire worlds carefully constructed out of words, images, and sounds. Though they never existed in the material sense, they leave imprints as enduring as history itself. This section explores how imagined universes shape our lives, culture, and even the course of human civilization. From Homer's epics to modern science fiction, humanity has always lived within stories. The Greek myths gave shape to entire cultural identities, filling the landscape with gods, monsters, and heroes who never existed, but whose influence still echoes in art, politics, and morality. Medieval Europe was structured by biblical narratives, with heaven and hell serving as maps for the moral imagination. In the modern era, novels, films, and television have expanded these fictional spaces into full universes, from Tolkien's Middle-earth to the sprawling galaxies of Star Wars. Each of these worlds, though unreal, carries a weight as if they were alternate histories. The echoes of fictional universes often transcend the page or screen. Languages invented for fiction, like Tolkien's Elvish or Star Trek's Klingon, are now spoken and studied. Philosophical debates erupt over the ethics of characters and societies that never existed. Even scientific research is inspired by them. Engineers model technologies on imagined devices like warp drives, communicators, or artificial intelligences first conceived in stories. Fiction does not merely entertain. It functions as a prototype factory for reality itself. Psychologically, these universes give us something more profound, a space to test emotions, ethics, and identities. When readers mourn the death of a fictional character, they feel a grief that is real, even though its object is not. When audiences cheer a hero's triumph, the joy is genuine, though the victory belongs to no one who ever lived. These emotions demonstrate that fictional universes exert real power. They shape values, encourage empathy, and offer models of courage or caution. A fictional character may never walk the earth, but they can still guide a person's choices. Contrast framing deepens the intrigue. On one side, skeptics argue that fiction is escapism, a distraction from real life. Why invest energy into worlds that never existed? On the other side, dreamers insist that fiction is the heart of what makes us human, that our ability to imagine and share unreal worlds is the engine of culture itself. The truth lies somewhere in between. Escapism may carry us away from the burdens of reality, but in doing so, it often arms us with new ways of seeing the world we return to. Fiction's unreality becomes a mirror, reflecting truths we might not face directly. Consider the cinematic power of fictional universes. A montage could shift between a theater filled with people watching the same film, their faces lit by the glow of the screen, and a convention hall alive with fans dressed as characters, enacting rituals from their favorite sagas. The narrator's voice cuts in. These worlds are not real, and yet they have colonies in the human mind. They live within us, shaping not only what we feel, but what we build. In that moment, the boundary between fiction and reality blurs into irrelevance. Philosophy, too, has grappled with the question of fictional entities. When we talk about Sherlock Holmes, are we lying? Or are we referring to a real entity in the domain of fiction? Possible world semantics suggests that Holmes is real in some possible world, even if not in ours. In that sense, every fictional universe is a world that exists in the logic of possibility. The unreal is not nothing. It is an alternative reality accessible through imagination. Cultural impact magnifies this point. Entire generations have been shaped by the worlds they grew up with. Star Trek envisioned a future of diversity and cooperation that inspired scientists, engineers, and social activists. The dystopias of Orwell and Huxley warned against totalitarianism and unchecked technology, influencing political debates. Even superheroes, born from comic books, have become modern myths, embodying collective desires for justice, power, and hope. Fictional universes not only echo, they resonate, altering the rhythm of real-world history. Yet, there is a haunting side to these echoes. Fictional universes can also trap us. Some people retreat so deeply into imagined worlds that reality becomes unbearable in comparison. Escapism becomes exile. The danger is that the unreal, though powerful, cannot fully substitute for the responsibilities of existence. This tension creates the emotional paradox. We need fictional universes to imagine better futures, but we risk losing ourselves in them if we forget to return. Cinematically, the section could end with imagery of bookshelves lined with beloved novels, movie reels spinning in darkened theaters, and computer screens glowing with virtual worlds. Slowly, the visuals dissolve into images of real cities, real languages, real technologies, many of which were once only imagined. The line between the fictional and the real becomes almost invisible. The voiceover delivers the closing words. Every fictional universe is an echo, reverberating into reality. They are not places we can walk, yet they leave footprints in our culture, our science, and our hearts. In their shadows, we find both escape and inspiration. These worlds may never have existed, but in 1,000 ways, they exist within us still. There are worlds that never existed, and yet, in some fragile moment of imagination, they almost did. They are the abandoned sketches of universes that hovered on the threshold of reality before slipping back into silence. Think of an author who begins to weave a tale but never completes it, a scientist who outlines a theory only to discard it, or a filmmaker whose storyboards remain unseen because funding fell through. These abandoned worlds live in fragments, in half-written manuscripts, forgotten drafts, whispers of potential futures. They are not dead because they never truly lived, and yet their absence is haunting, like a phantom breath caught between existence and nothingness. The silence of these abandoned worlds is not empty. It hums with possibility. When an unfinished story is discovered, a lost manuscript of Kafka, or the fragment of an ancient myth, we sense the outline of a world we were meant to know but never did. Readers linger in the gaps, filling the silence with their own imagination. In this way, abandoned worlds invite participation. They call us to step into the silence and complete what was left undone. But the silence is double-edged. While it tempts us with mystery, it also reminds us of the fragility of creation. For every story we read, countless others were silenced before they had the chance to be told. Cinematically, imagine a dark archive lit by a single beam of light falling on dusty stacks of paper. The camera pans across unfinished sketches, half-drawn maps of lands unnamed, characters left without dialogue, scenes frozen mid-thought. The narrator's voice cuts through. Here lie the ruins of worlds abandoned. They never collapsed, for they were never built. Their silence is their only monument. The effect is eerie, as though these incomplete works are ghosts waiting for recognition. Philosophy raises profound questions about these abandoned universes. Are they less real than completed fictions, or do they occupy the same possible space? In the realm of imagination, is a half-formed idea fundamentally different from a fully developed narrative? Some philosophers argue that once an idea is conceived, even for a moment, it creates an imprint in the space of possibility. The silence of abandoned worlds is not nothingness. It is a kind of limbo where the potential for existence hovers eternally without resolution. Psychologically, abandoned worlds speak to our own mortality. Just as we leave unfinished projects in our lives, humanity itself leaves behind fragments of what might have been. Civilizations have collapsed mid-story. Ancient cities were abandoned, their myths silenced before they could reach us in their fullness. Each lost culture is itself a kind of abandoned world, echoing with silence across time. The tragedy is not only in what was lost, but in the knowledge that we will never know the fullness of what could have been. Contrast framing sharpens this poignancy. On one side, there is the thrill of discovery. Stumbling upon a half-written symphony or reading an unfinished epic can ignite awe at the raw intimacy of creativity. It feels like eavesdropping on the mind of the creator. On the other side, there's a melancholy ache, knowing that the silence is final, that we will never see what might have grown from those seeds. The silence is not passive. It is a wound that refuses closure. In modern times, digital culture has amplified this phenomenon. Online, countless fictional universes are begun and abandoned. Blogs with a few entries, fanfictions that stop mid-chapter, game concepts that never leave early development. All of these are the digital ruins of unrealized creation. They form a vast graveyard of possibilities, accessible but unfinished. For those who find them, there's a bittersweet beauty in imagining what might have been. The silence becomes interactive, inviting the reader or viewer to co-create the missing pieces. The cinematic rhythm could shift here to a montage of abandoned worlds across history. Ancient tablets with broken inscriptions, Leonardo da Vinci's unfinished sketches of machines, silent reels of films never completed, digital projects left in beta stages. Over these images, the narration would whisper, "Every age has its silence. Every imagination leaves behind shadows of what could not be carried forward." The pacing would slow, creating a weight of stillness, until the silence itself becomes palpable for the audience. But silence is not only absence, it can also be fertile. Abandoned worlds sometimes inspire new worlds. The fragments of one story may ignite the birth of another. Many writers and creators admit that their most successful works grew from the ruins of earlier, failed attempts. Just as seeds grow from the decayed remains of old forests, imagination often thrives on what was left unfinished. In this way, silence becomes the soil of creation. And yet, there is an existential terror embedded in this theme. What if our own world is such an abandoned project? A universe begun, but not destined for completion? Cosmology entertains the idea of universes that collapse shortly after beginning, aborted before they can stabilize. Could we too be a draft in the notebook of eternity, destined to remain unfinished? The silence of abandoned worlds is unsettling because it mirrors the silence that may await us all. The section closes with imagery of silence as both emptiness and echo. A long shot of a deserted theater, seats empty, a stage prepared for a play that will never begin. The camera lingers on the dust floating in the light. The narrator's final words resonate. The silence of abandoned worlds is not absence. It is the sound of possibility withheld, of futures forever unborn. In their silence, we hear not nothing, but the haunting echo of what could have been. Numbers whisper in patterns we cannot see. Equations stretch into realms that do not exist, and yet they map the contours of possibilities with chilling precision. Mathematics has always been more than a tool of measurement. It is a lantern illuminating worlds that remain beyond our grasp. Some of those worlds are purely imaginary, constructed out of symbols and logic, never intended to be physical. And yet, these mathematical fictions have a strange power. They not only describe what is real, but they also predict what could exist. They are blueprints for realities that remain unborn, silent architectures floating in the space of abstraction. Imagine a mathematician at a desk, chalk in hand, drawing arcs of symbols across a blackboard. To an untrained eye, the scrawled equations look meaningless, but to the mathematician, each formula opens a window into another possible world. Complex numbers describe dimensions that cannot be touched. Non-Euclidean geometries bend space into impossible shapes. Higher dimensional manifolds imagine universes where lines intersect in ways our senses cannot comprehend. These are not just calculations. They are acts of creation, summoning realities into existence with no matter, no atoms, no stars, only thought. The mystery begins when these mathematical worlds, seemingly fictional, start to bleed into reality. Take the case of antimatter. It was first imagined on paper, a strange symmetry that emerged from Dirac's equations. At the time, it was nothing more than a mathematical ghost, a prediction from a formula. And yet, within years, antimatter was discovered in laboratories, proving that a world once imagined in symbols existed in reality. Time and again, equations lead to discoveries. Black holes, the Higgs boson, gravitational waves, all foretold by mathematics before telescopes or colliders confirmed them. Mathematics is not only a language of description, it is a prophecy of existence. Contrast sharpens the drama. On one side, mathematics serves as the bridge between fiction and reality, predicting entities before they are found. On the other, it also creates infinite worlds that will never be real. Imaginary numbers, negative dimensions, infinite fractals. These exist perfectly within mathematical logic, but have no manifestation in the universe we know. They remain trapped in abstraction, fictional realities that haunt the edges of science. The unsettling question is, are these worlds truly non-existent, or are they real in some realm beyond our perception? Cinematically, the sequence could show chalk dust falling in slow motion as equations fill a board, dissolving into cosmic imagery. Fractal patterns spiraling into galaxies, mathematical curves shaping universes of light and color. The narrator whispers, "These are not equations. They are worlds, constructed from numbers, suspended in logic, awaiting recognition." The effect is hypnotic, merging the cold rigor of mathematics with the wonder of imagination. Philosophy deepens the tension. Plato believed numbers were not human inventions, but eternal forms, realer than the physical world itself. To him, mathematics was not fiction. It was discovery of eternal truths. If that is so, then every mathematical structure we invent already exists, somewhere, as a form of reality. When mathematicians write equations of 11-dimensional space, they are not imagining, they are uncovering. From this view, the mathematics of imaginary realities suggests that countless worlds exist in the realm of forms, even if they never materialize in ours. And yet, a counter-view insists that mathematics is human-made, a language that only approximates reality. In this framing, imaginary numbers or abstract dimensions are not real worlds, but symbols, convenient tools with no existence outside of our minds. If so, then the mathematics of imaginary realities is the grandest theater humanity has ever built, a stage where logic performs dramas that the universe will never stage. The contrast between these views fuels the intrigue. Are we discovering worlds or inventing them? The psychological dimension is equally fascinating. Human beings are deeply moved by the aesthetics of mathematics. Equations that balance with elegance, fractals that spiral with infinite beauty, symmetries that shine with perfection. These create emotions akin to awe and reverence. Imaginary realities in mathematics touch the human soul, not just the intellect. Even when we know they may never exist, we cannot help but feel drawn into their silent beauty. In their patterns, we glimpse the possibility of worlds more perfect than our own. Consider also the role of mathematics in storytelling. Many fictional universes are built on mathematical imagination. The idea of hyperspace in science fiction, the geometry of wormholes, the equations behind time travel. These are narratives spun from mathematical speculation. Fiction borrows its scaffolding from math, transforming abstract structures into settings for human drama. In this sense, mathematics serves as the hidden architect of many fictional worlds, grounding imagination in a framework that feels eerily possible. Cinematically, the section could climax with a visual journey through fractals. The camera zooms endlessly into a Mandelbrot set, revealing new landscapes at every scale. Valleys, mountains, spirals, galaxies, worlds within worlds. The narration ties this image to the central theme. In every equation lies a universe. Some are waiting to be discovered. Others remain forever in silence. Mathematical worlds that will never touch reality. And yet they are there, alive in logic, complete in themselves. The haunting implication is that there may be infinite worlds described by mathematics that will never materialize, and yet their existence in abstraction makes them real in some sense. We are left to wonder, is our universe itself just one solution to a larger equation, chosen from an infinite library of possible mathematical worlds? If so, then our reality is simply one among countless others, most of which will never breathe. The section ends with imagery of a mathematician erasing a blackboard, the dust settling into silence. The narrator's closing words linger. Mathematics builds worlds from nothing. Some leap into reality. Others remain forever on the page, imaginary but eternal. They are the unborn children of logic, waiting in silence, reminding us that the border between fiction and reality is written not in stone, but in numbers. Imagine receiving a signal, a pattern of sound or light, that carries meaning but has no sender, no origin, no source that can be traced. A message from nowhere, yet filled with intent. Such a notion is both haunting and magnetic. Humanity is primed to search for meaning, to decode signals, to find the intelligence behind every whisper. But what if the final message, the one that outlasts civilizations, is not a voice from another world, but an echo from worlds that never existed? This section is the closing meditation on the enigma, the ultimate message that arrives without a world to anchor it. Cinematically, the scene opens with the image of a radio telescope staring into the void, the dish tilted toward the stars. The camera lingers on the silence, punctuated by static. Then, faintly, a pattern emerges, a rhythm, a sequence. The narrator's voice drifts in. Every message demands a sender. Every signal implies a source. But what happens when the source cannot be found? The tension is immediate. We are listening to the cosmos, and it is speaking, but in a language without origin. Throughout history, humanity has experienced strange signals that bordered on the unexplainable. The mysterious wow. Signal detected in 1977, a 72-second burst from space, remains one of the most tantalizing enigmas. No repetition, no known source, just a lone message hanging in the void. While scientists lean toward natural explanations, the imagination resists. What if it was the final echo of a world that never was? A transmission from a civilization that collapsed before we could answer? Or perhaps something stranger, a message coded into the structure of the universe itself, an artifact of a possible world brushing against our own. Philosophy deepens the weight of this enigma. In semiotics, every sign requires three things: the sign itself, what it refers to, and the interpreter. But a message from nowhere disrupts this triad. It has no clear referent, no clear sender. All that remains is the interpreter, us, straining to extract meaning from silence. The haunting possibility is that the meaning was never intended, that we are projecting patterns on a randomness. But what if the opposite is true? What if these patterns are deliberate, their senders existing not in our universe, but in one of the infinite possible ones mathematics predicts? Then every strange signal is not random noise, but the crossing shadow of another reality. Contrast frames the tension. On one side, skepticism insists there is no message. There's only static, only chaos, only the noise of nature. On the other, hope whispers, no, this is communication. This is intelligence reaching out, proof that we are not alone. Between these poles, the audience feels the pull of mystery, the desperate human need for connection against the stark indifference of the void. Psychologically, the idea of a last message carries immense weight. It is the human fear of final silence, of reaching the end and hearing nothing in return. But the notion of a message from nowhere offers something else, hope disguised as mystery. It suggests that meaning can exist even without a sender, that the universe itself may be capable of generating messages, whispers embedded in its structure, awaiting discovery. Perhaps the last message is not from another civilization at all, but from the cosmos itself, a self-reflection encoded in its mathematics, a poem written in the geometry of existence. Cinematically, we could show cities at night, lights glowing like constellations, as the camera zooms outward until Earth itself becomes just another speck against the endless dark. A soft transmission hums in the background, faint but steady. The narration intones. We strain to hear voices in the silence. We long for answers from stars. But what if the last message is not meant for us, nor from us? What if it belongs to no world, but exists on its own, as the echo of a possibility that never came to be? The audience is suspended in awe and unease, feeling both the beauty and terror of that idea. The existential implications are staggering. If messages can exist without senders, then meaning is not dependent on intention. Meaning becomes an emergent property of the cosmos itself. This suggests that our search for messages, whether in radio signals, in mathematics, or in stories, is not a quest for others but a mirror of ourselves. We are the interpreters, weaving coherence in a chaos. And in that act, we become the source. The message from nowhere is not evidence of absence, but proof of the infinite generativity of imagination itself. But there is another haunting possibility. What if the last message is not for us? What if it is a remnant from another timeline, a fragment that slipped through the cracks between worlds? In this view, every fictional universe humanity has ever created is itself a kind of message, transmitted across the void of imagination. Middle-earth, Narnia, Krypton, Gallifrey. Each is a world that never existed, yet their stories reached us like signals from nowhere. In that sense, fiction itself is the ultimate last message, a whisper from universes that never lived, but which left their voices echoing in our minds. The section builds to its closing crescendo with the imagery of silence returning. The signal fades. The static swallows the last trace of rhythm. The telescope stares into nothingness. The narrator's voice lowers, calm and solemn. The last message does not need a sender. It does not need a world. It exists in its own right, suspended between silence and meaning. We, the listeners, give it life. And perhaps that is the final truth, that the worlds which never existed still speak, their echoes carried not in the stars, but in us. The final shot fades into darkness. The silence lingers, heavy yet alive, as if waiting for the audience to answer. The journey through possible worlds, abandoned realities, and messages without senders finally bends back to the one world that undeniably exists, our own. After drifting through the silence of imagination and the echoes of universes that never came to be, the question remains, what does it mean to return home? What lessons can we carry back from worlds that were only whispers? This section brings the narrative full circle, grounding the cosmic odyssey in the intimate soil of our lived reality. Cinematically, the opening could be gentle but striking. The camera glides slowly across familiar landscapes, crowded streets buzzing with life, a sunrise breaking over mountains, the ocean's endless pulse against the shore. The narrator's voice begins softly. For all the worlds we imagine, there is one we cannot escape, the one beneath our feet, the one that holds our breath, our choices, our fragile stories. The contrast is immediate. Against the vast backdrop of unreal possibilities, the ordinary world becomes extraordinary in its singularity. The act of returning to our world is not a retreat from wonder, but a deepening of it. Having glimpsed the architectures of worlds that never existed, we see ours more clearly. Fictional universes show us courage, fear, hope, and despair, refracted through imagination. Mathematical worlds display the strange logic of infinite possibility. Abandoned worlds remind us of fragility, of how easily potential can slip into silence. The return is therefore not empty-handed. We carry back perspectives that sharpen the meaning of our own existence. Philosophically, this return echoes the Platonic idea of leaving the cave. The shadows on the wall, those fictional and possible worlds, prepare the mind, but the sunlight of reality is where we must live. Yet unlike Plato's cave, this return is not about dismissing the shadows as false. Instead, it acknowledges that the shadows gave us insight into what the light truly reveals. Our world is richer precisely because we have walked through unreal ones. Psychologically, there is immense power in grounding imagination in reality. Stories inspire, but actions transform. A fictional hero may move us, but it is only when we embody courage in our own lives that their echo becomes substance. The silence of abandoned worlds warns us not to leave our own projects unfinished. The mathematics of imaginary realities reminds us that possibility is boundless, but our choices determine which potential paths become real. Returning home is a call to responsibility, to honor this singular world with the fullness of our imagination and effort. Contrast sharpens this realization. On one side lies despair, the realization that no matter how many worlds we dream of, we are confined to one fragile earth. On the other side lies awe. This confinement is not a limitation, but a gift. The sheer improbability of our world's existence, the delicate web of conditions that made life possible, is staggering. While countless worlds never existed, this one did. It is not only real, it is miraculous. The tension between confinement and miracle creates an emotional crescendo, inviting the audience to see their lives as part of something rare and luminous. Cinematically, this contrast could be shown through a shift in scale. The film might cut from imagined planets, alien skies, and abstract mathematical spaces back to a simple shot of a hand touching the bark of a tree or a child's laughter echoing in a park. These ordinary moments become radiant in their ordinariness. The narrator's voice, steady and reverent, frames it, The world we dream of are infinite. But the world we wake into each day is one of a kind. And it is enough if we dare to see it. The return to our world also carries an ethical dimension. When we recognize the uniqueness of our universe, we feel the weight of responsibility. Fictional universes can be reset, rewritten, restarted. Our world cannot. Its ecosystems, its histories, its fragile balance, all demand care. The lesson of worlds that never existed is not that our world is small, but that it is precious. To return is to choose stewardship, to honor the miracle of what is. And yet, there is no need to abandon imagination in favor of reality. Rather, the two must be braided together. The dreams of possible worlds become blueprints for change in the real one. The cautionary tales of dystopia urge us to avoid certain futures. The utopias inspire us to build better societies. The mathematics of abstract possibility fuels new technologies. The fictional is not discarded upon return. It becomes a companion, a guide for how to live more wisely in what is real. Cinematically, this could be represented by dissolving images, a fictional city fading into a real one, a sketch spaceship overlaying an actual rocket launch, a mythic figure dissolving into an ordinary person walking down a street. The visual message is clear. Imagination and reality are not opposites, but reflections, each shaping the other. The narration ties it together. We do not leave the other worlds behind. They walk with us, shaping the way we see our own. In their echoes, we hear the call to build, to protect, to dream, but here in this world. The emotional climax of this return lies in the recognition of belonging. We are not exiles from possible worlds, nor are we failures for living in only one. We are participants in the great, improbable reality that unfolded among infinite unrealized ones. The sense of awe that carried us through imagined universes now collapses inward, finding its anchor in the soil beneath us, the air around us, the lives intertwined with ours. The section closes with quiet reverence. The camera lingers on Earth from orbit, the blue marble glowing against the black void, delicate and alive. The narrator speaks with solemn wonder. Among all the worlds that never existed, one did. This one is here that our stories breathe, here that our choices matter, here that we belong. To return to our world is not to diminish the others, but to honor the singular miracle of reality itself. And then silence, deep, steady silence, as if to let the audience feel the weight of being here, now, in the one world that is. Every story must end, and yet some endings are not conclusions, but openings into silence. As we step out of the labyrinth of imagined realities, abandoned worlds, mathematical universes, and messages without senders, one truth remains. The echoes of worlds that never existed will continue to follow us. They are eternal, not in their substance, for they never had any, but in their resonance, which lingers in the minds and hearts of those who dare to imagine. This final section is not about closing the door, but about listening to what continues beyond it, the eternal echo. Cinematically, the scene opens with darkness. Slowly, faint sounds emerge, whispers, fragments of voices, the distant murmur of static. They swell and fade, never resolving into clarity. Over this, the narrator speaks. Every world leaves an echo, even those that never were. They reverberate not through space, but through us, shaping what we dream, what we fear, and what we hope. The imagery is ethereal, blending memories of all the earlier sequences, fictional cities, cosmic maps, unfinished manuscripts, until they dissolve into the present moment. The eternal echo is not merely metaphorical. In a profound sense, our lives are built on the resonance of unreal things. Myths that never happened shaped civilizations. Stories that were never true gave us courage and laws. Mathematical symmetries that exist only in abstraction gave rise to technologies that define our age. Fiction, philosophy, abandoned drafts, forgotten signals, all of them ripple outward into reality. The unreal is not wasted. It is woven into the fabric of the real. Philosophy asks, what is an echo? It is not the voice itself, but its afterimage. It is the persistence of sound after the source has gone silent. In the same way, the echo of unreal worlds is not the worlds themselves, but their afterimage in our consciousness. They did not exist, but they continue to exist through us, through memory, through possibility. The eternal echo suggests that imagination is never lost. It simply transforms into resonance, carried forward in ways we cannot predict. Contrast sharpens this reflection. On one side lies fear, the knowledge that so much potential, so many worlds, so many lives, so many universes will never be. That silence, loss, and absence are inevitable. On the other side lies wonder, the realization that even absence can speak, that even silence can echo, and that even the unreal can shape the real. The tension between these poles gives the final note its power, leaving the audience suspended between awe and melancholy. Cinematically, the narrative could move here into a slow crescendo. Images of abandoned ruins are shown, then fade into living cities. Equations dissolve into real machines. Fictional heroes dissolve into real acts of kindness. The echoes of what never was are shown bleeding into what is. The narration frames it. The unreal does not vanish. It reverberates, guiding the hand of the builder, the pen of the poet, the heart of the dreamer. The montage expands outward until Earth itself is shown, suspended in the infinite silence of the cosmos, yet alive with echoes. Psychologically, the eternal echo is also personal. Each of us carries abandoned dreams, half-formed ideas, stories we never told. They live in us like quiet ghosts, shaping our choices in subtle ways. Sometimes they haunt us, but often they guide us. To honor the eternal echo is to recognize that even the unreal within us has value. The poem we never finished, the project we set aside, the dream we thought we abandoned, all of them still resonate, perhaps in ways we cannot see. The unreal leaves traces in the real, whether in regret, inspiration, or memory. The eternal echo also reframes the way we see death. Just as abandoned worlds leave resonance, so too do lives. When a person passes, their presence becomes echo, carried in stories, gestures, and the lives they touched. They no longer exist, but their unrealized futures still reverberate in those who remain. In this way, the concept of worlds that never existed connects directly to the human condition. Our lives are finite, but their echoes are infinite. The climax of this final meditation is a reversal. Perhaps the eternal echo is the true reality. Perhaps it is not the physical world that endures, but the resonance it leaves. Stars die, planets collapse, civilizations vanish. But the echoes of what they were, or what they might have been, ripple forward. If so, then existence itself is not measured in matter, but in resonance. The eternal echo is the final stage of being, neither presence nor absence, but something in between. Cinematically, this realization could be expressed with a single breathtaking image, a voice spoken into a canyon, the sound bouncing back in endless repetition, even as the speaker walks away. The camera follows the echo outward, through mountains, through sky, into space. The narration delivers the closing words. The worlds that never existed are not lost. They are echoes, eternal, resonating through time, memory, and imagination. And if you listen closely, in the silence between heartbeats, you can still hear them. The film fades to black. No music, no resolution, just silence. A silence so complete that the audience becomes aware of their own breath, their own heartbeat. In that silence, the eternal echo continues, not on the screen, but in the mind of the listener.